So we call upon your name, Jesus. With every word you speak, you set the captives free. All the praise we give belongs to you. The only name we seek to see the darkness flee. All the praise we give belongs to you. So we call upon your name. So we call upon your name. So we call upon your name, Jesus. For there is no other name by which we can be saved. So we call upon your name, Jesus. Wonderful Counselor, King of Kings, Savior, the name above every name. Light of life, deliverer, risen one, redeemer. You are the door, you are the way. Lamb of God, light man, solid rock, great I am, the Son of Man who conquered hell. Bread of life, Prince of Peace, my defense and great high priest, who was and is Emmanuel. So we call upon your name. So we call upon your name. So we call upon your name, Jesus. For there is no other name by which we can be saved. So we call upon your name, Jesus. Wonderful Counselor, King of Kings, Savior, the name above every name. Light of life, deliverer, risen one, redeemer. You are the door, you are the way. Lamb of God, lion man, solid rock, great I am, the Son of Man who conquered hell. Bread of life, Prince of Peace, my defense and great high priest, who was and is Emmanuel. So we call upon your name. So we call upon your name. So we call.
Ash Wednesday, beautiful Ash Wednesday, because on the other side of repentance, we know there's forgiveness. So welcome. I'll pray for us, and then we'll get started with some worship. God, thank you so much for the season of repentance and remembering your sacrifice, both your sacrificial life and your sacrificial death while you were here on earth in the season of Lent. And I just pray that you would meet us here tonight. That's the greatest thing that we can ask for, and you've already promised it. So I just pray that you'd help us be open to your presence and just hear what you have to say for us. Amen. come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. Come today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joy. From the ashes, a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. What a Savior. Isn't he wonderful? Sing hallelujah. Christ is risen. Bow down before him, for he is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah. Christ is risen. hopeless have found their hope. The orphans now have a home. All that was lost has found its place in you. You lift our weary head. You make us strong instead. You took these rags and made us beautiful. For all that you've done, we will pour out our love. This will be our anthem song. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. We love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss. The Father turns His face away, as wounds which mar the chosen ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything. No gifts, no power, no wisdom. But I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death and resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart. His wounds have paid my ransom. Oh, why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart. His wounds have paid my ransom. How deep the Father's love for us. How deep the Father's love for us. God, we thank you for your amazing love that covers over every sin. And as we look into the face of sin tonight in a lot of ways, and as we see the depravity of man, I just pray that you'd help us see sin the way that you do, and that our hearts would break, but that we would remember the hope that you've given us and the fact that you've paid for every one of these sins that we're going to talk about. And I just pray that you would give us compassion and wisdom and help us protect the innocent. Just pray that you'd be speaking tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. You may greet one another.
Good evening, guys. How you guys doing tonight? Yes, good. Good to see you. Well, apparently we have gone into the social media world when you won't even stand up and greet someone 5 feet away from you. Is this like a COVID thing or something? But welcome. I just want to introduce myself to you. If you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Kessler. Is there anyone here that's new for the first time? All right, welcome. Hey, great. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you guys came. My name is Matt, and I'm the youth pastor here at Calvary for high school kids. The name of our high school ministry is called 8611. And we're really excited to have Scott come and share with you guys tonight. He is the detective for Benton County Sheriff's Department for Internet Crimes Against Children. And he has come and spoke to our school here, Calvary Christian School, to our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders And then he came and spoke to the kids at 8611, and it was good information, really good for them to hear things, especially from a law enforcement point of view, kind of scare them a little bit and give them a dose of reality, which is really good. One of the things that I deal with, and actually, before I get into that, let me just share with you how tonight's going to go. Scott's going to come up here and talk for about an hour. And then we're gonna, then I'm gonna come back up here with him, and we're gonna do a Q&A for about 20 minutes or so. And I'm guessing most of your questions are gonna be for him, but I'll be up here in case you have questions from a youth pastor's perspective. I work with teens. I've been working with kids for 25 years, and I got 3 daughters, all teens. And so just in case you have a question for a parent or a youth pastor, anything like that, I'll be up here. But I'm sure Scott, most of the questions will be directed to him. So he'll come and talk for an hour, then there'll be a Q&A, and then I'm just going to share a little bit of what I've found, some options for you guys as parents, because I'm sure that's probably what you'll be looking for. So I'll share about 10, 15 minutes on that. So that's how the night will go. What I did want to share, though, is before we get into the night, one of the things that parents will ask me to do is, because I'm a pastor and I do counseling, most of the counseling I do is marriage counseling, but they do come up and ask if I will counsel their children. And the first thing I do before I counsel kids is I say, well, I want to talk to you guys. And so I'll meet mom or dad, or preferably both, and have a conversation with them. Because what good does it do to a kid for me to give this kid information when he goes home and he doesn't have control over his house, right? And so all of the information that we've given to the kids at 8611 and the youth group, that's great. It's really good. But really, it's you that's influential, right, in their life and looking over them. And I was looking at this passage in Ephesians, this passage that you guys know. It says, "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord." So there's a couple things that I wanted to just give to you guys tonight. One is that with all of the helps that are out there, whether it's a particular type of phone or no phone or flip phone or whatever, and we'll give some options for those tonight. But nothing is traded for your direct influence in their life, you talking to them. And so that's not a substitution, just using some safety net or something like that. You're responsible to train your kids. I know I'm preaching to the choir because you're here tonight, but I just wanted to instill that into you and encourage you in that. And then the second thing is there really is as much safety as there is. What do we know about safety? Yeah, it's not 100% fail-proof, right? And so as much as I want to, put this bubble around my kids and protect them, and I think to certain levels that's true, nothing replaces and nothing is better than the Holy Spirit working in their life. So do your kids know Christ? Do they see Christ in you? Is your home a Christ-centered life? Because guess what? Your kids are going to blow it. Anyone here grow up in a Christian home? Did you blow it? Did you blow it kind of bad? Any of you guys? Because that's me, right? And guess what God does, right? And so don't get discouraged in that. I've been working with kids for a really long time, like I said, 25 years, and I don't get discouraged when they blow it. It's something that I expect, because the Bible says, "For all have sinned," even kids that grow up in Christian homes. Right? And so it happens. But what they hopefully have is they have the truth, and they have what Jesus told the woman at the well is that the true worshipers of God worship him in spirit and in truth, right? And that's what needs to be had in your home, is the truth of God. So do they have the truth of God, and do they have the spirit of God? Maybe you grew up in one of those homes that was all truth and no spirit. How fun was that? All right. And then maybe some of you guys grew up in a home that was all spirit and no truth. And that was a lot of fun, right? But Jesus made it clear that you need both, right? And so I need the spirit in my house and I need the truth of God. And so I'm always trying to have conversations with my kids about everything, their relationships with their friends and, what kids are talking about and things like that. And I know that you guys do, but I just want to encourage you in that the most important thing is instilling in your kids that they have a walk with Christ and what the Word of God has to say and being obedient to that. And it being, Jesus said, I came to give you life to the fullest. So is being Christian fun? Because it should be. It should be a full life, right? And so I just wanted to just give you that little bit of a nugget and encourage you on that. But Scott's going to come up. As I said, he's the detective for Benton County Internet Crimes Against Children. So if you would, welcome Scott. Where are you at, buddy? There you are. Thank you so much.
Hello. Well, at least I made it up here without tripping. So this is a pretty good sized room before, so I'm going to do my best to slow things down. I tend to ramble or talk fast when I'm nervous, so hopefully I give you some information that'll be helpful for all of you. Hopefully you take something away from this, and hopefully I don't bore you to death. And if I do, just remember we're in church, so you have to be nice to me, either way. As Mr. Kessie said, my name's Scott Runge. I'm a Tri-Cities native. I grew up here. I came up through Kamiakan High School, graduated back in 1995. I pretty much grew up in every city around here. And after my time locally, I tried the college path, wasn't too good at it. So I decided to join the United States Army and become a military police officer. My father, who was already a law enforcement officer, he's actually recently retired, Detective Rick Runge with Kennewick PD. He encouraged my path. And between him and my stepmother, who's actually a recently retired Judge Carrie Runge, let's just say my household dinners were a little unique. I was fed on crazy law enforcement stories of, I don't want to go on and on about it, but yeah, so I kind of learned about law pretty early in my time. And I can tell you right now, being a high school kid and a son of a police officer, the last thing I ever wanted to do was be a police officer. I told my dad many ideas of what I wanted to do when I grow up, and he just didn't think they were very good. And so he encouraged me to go down the path of law enforcement, and I'm happy I did. I actually found my calling in it, and I discovered a lot of things. Once I came out of the United States Army, the worst thing you can do is give an 18-year-old a gun and a badge and tell him, enforce law, right? I mean, I'm sorry, at 18, now that seems like 100 years ago, we're not emotionally prepared for the things that we see, for the true things that we deal with. I mean, because you're right there at the edge of carnage, and you're right there at seeing people at their worst. And when I came home from the Army, I told my dad I want nothing to do with it. I couldn't do it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up getting a job with Benton County Corrections, and I started my career as a corrections officer in 2001. I did that for about 4 years and realized that being incarcerated with these guys was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I started asking around, and I found out that as a police officer, well, you got to retire a lot earlier and made a lot more money. So I was like, sign me up. I can't hack this anymore. Law enforcement, police officers. There's different kinds of police officers, let's be honest. You have the traffic guys, they're the ones that love to write tickets. I mean, they'll give them to everybody, to include their own mother, I promise you that. They're usually in those fancy hats with the blue bow tie and white cars. I'm just teasing. I make fun of my Washington State Patrol brothers and sisters, but, we know who they are. We have the warrant chasers, I like to call them. They're the best bloodhounds in the business. They don't like to get their hands too dirty with paperwork, but man, they can find somebody, whoever you need, wherever you need them, they'll find them. And they're good at what they do. They like to put the cuffs on, quick arrest, get those stats up. Yeah, I got 20 arrests this month, so they're all excited about it. We got the SWAT guys. Those are the guys that were apparently never in the military and didn't have to wear the heavy gear all the time. I don't know why, but they're all rifles and SWAT negotiations and, So, but, again, God bless them. We need them because I ain't going anywhere near the building with the guy shooting all over the place. So I will, but, you don't want me there. You want those guys first. And the last one we have is the investigator. And I learned pretty early on in my career that I wanted to do that. One of the questions that every cop gets during their oral board, why do you want to be a police officer? The number one answer, because I want to help people. Most people are, especially traffic guys, let's be honest, they don't want to help people, they want to write tickets. But I can say I answered that honestly. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be there for them, and I wanted to take care of as many as I could. Within 4 years of law enforcement as just a patrol officer, I knew that being in a patrol car was not my calling. And a detective position became open immediately, and I tested, and I became a major crimes detective for 8 years. Major crimes in Benton County handles murder, robbery, homicide, burglary, you name it, we handle it. We even handle voter fraud, which is just a little bit of everything. Unfortunately, I have to say that 75% of my caseload was child sex. And I dealt with a lot of victims. And I heard their stories. And we did everything we could to make sure that they got justice for the crimes that happened to them. And I can say for me personally, we've successfully adjudicated and convicted everybody that ever reported, at least to me in my knowledge. I don't know of anybody that ever got away with it. I knew from personal experience that I had an ability to communicate to kids. Unfortunately, not trying to be too much information. I come from a generation where it wasn't polite to talk about child sexual abuse. Nobody wanted to mention it. And sometimes if it happened to you, it would be covered under the rug. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, she's mistaken. Oh, Uncle so-and-so would never do that. And it was covered up. My own personal unique situation is not so unique because many members of my family have suffered that same atrocity. I knew that what I went through was a gift because I was finally able to do something for all those that suffered through it. I was able to communicate to children what it's like to feel neglected or forgotten or abused and be able to talk to them in a way that encouraged them to tell their stories. Once I knew my calling in that, Benton County became enrolled into the Internet Crimes Against Children Taskforce. The Taskforce had already been there, but Benton County decided to finally put somebody into it. I knew that's where I needed to go. I tested for the position and immediately got the position, so I'm the first ICAC member from Benton County, and I've been there since 2018. I get asked all the time, I don't know how you do what you do. But after doing it, I don't know how I can do anything else. Our mission is unique. We are a different type of breed. Our own brothers and sisters and badges don't want to talk to us. We are the mutants. Nobody wants to hear our stories. Nobody wants to know what we have to suffer. Nobody wants to know what we've seen. I've seen the face of evil. I've seen the depravity of man. I've seen the darkness that dwells. And I can tell you, some of them are the best at hiding it and intermingling amongst all of us. The opportunity to do this job is one that I'll always treasure. Granted, my father, phenomenal detective. Some of the best homicides, cold case. There's not that many cops that can say that they've closed a cold case. I mean, that's nearly impossible, 15, 20 years, and he's got that under his badge. Did some of the original human trafficking cases in the Tri-Cities. I actually got the opportunity to work with my father. Hands down, he is my role model as a son and as a cop. But this is one thing that I got to do different, and I got to stake my own way of doing it. I'm proud of the work we do, but some of the things I'm going to share with you are going to be, I'm not going to give you details, so I don't want to freak anybody out here. If this is your first time here, please do not base your visit on my speech, okay? Don't run away. I promise you it's much better than what I'm going to give you. But I'm going to use terms, folks, and because we're going to have a very truthful conversation, and we're going to have a very honest conversation. I'm not going to tell you gross words, and I'm not going to be profane, and I'm not going to say things that are going to hopefully trigger too much of a response out of you. But you're going to have to get used to hearing words like pornography, child pornography, rape, child abuse, solicitation of a child. I get asked all the time, so like when you deal with child pornography, right, what is that, like, 16 to 18? No. It's from infancy to one day before they're 18. And I can tell you, that is exactly what I see. And I've seen the worst. People all the time, it's funny because the church and law enforcement kind of have the same metaphor in a way. The church, we're the sheep. Jesus is our shepherd, and he's trying to take us home. Law enforcement, we do believe the same thing. The people are the sheep, but law enforcement's the sheepdog. We're the ones that are trying to protect you from the wolves. We don't intermingle with you very well, because sometimes the sheepdog has to nip the sheep to keep them in shape. So sometimes don't let our facades make us unapproachable. If you ever have questions of us, please always come forward to us. The reason I bring up the sheep metaphor is because the sheep, sometimes I wish I could go back to being a sheep. I wish I didn't know what I knew. People tend to go and think, well, that's big city problems. That doesn't happen here. We're fine. We just keep doing what we're doing, keep positive, think good thoughts, and we're going to be okay. I hate to tell you, folks, it's right here. It's everywhere. You can't get away from it. Washington State is the #1 highest receiver of what we call cyber tips. A cyber tip is where a corporation is required to notify the National Center of Missing Exploited Children of child pornography that is run through one of their systems. Okay? So say Facebook is running algorithms through their messenger. They locate child pornography being passed from one user to another user. They have to draft what's called a cyber tip, report it to NCMEC, National Center of Missing Exploited Children. NCMEC then says, okay, we're going to look at the IP address. We know that this goes to Washington State. Seattle ICAC takes over the cyber tip, says, okay, we know that this happened in Kennewick, Washington. We're going to assign it to my Taskforce. We are the #1 highest receiver of cyber tips in America. We saw recently an increase of 200% between 2020 and 2021. It is so vast that we cannot possibly keep up. Some of you are aware, for example, of the Bunch Finnegan case. I'm sure you've probably seen it on the news. That was my case. I'm going to bring up, let me just preface this real quick. I'm going to bring up certain cases and certain stories. I'm not going to try to mention names because this is the smallest big town that I know, especially growing up here. Everybody knows everybody. But I'm going to bring up examples, and I'm not going to bring up names, and not because I think the people are bad or I think little of them. It's just because we all learn from each other, right? I would rather tell you where I failed as a parent or as a cop so you guys don't make the same mistakes than just be like, well, I'm going to be polite. Let's not talk about it. We're past that, folks. We need to have the conversation. Bunch Finnegan is still a wonderful appliance store. I know the father, Mr. Bunch, one of the most wonderful men I've ever met. God-fearing, church-going man. He raised his sons to be God-fearing, church-going kids. The case that we did, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, the suspect of the case was running remote software out of the business. He was that educated to run remote software out of the business to do what's called a peer-to-peer network, meaning for all of us that are older than a minute, Napster, LimeWire, BearShare, when you want to get your free movie but you don't want to pay for it, it's called pirating. Same software is being used to trade child pornography. He was running a peer-to-peer network out of the store for years. I got in at 18. I was assigned the case by early 19, and it had already passed through several hands. I decided to go ahead and work it, and when we finally got it, we pulled out this one individual 7 terabytes of child pornography. That translates to roughly 5 to 6 million depictions. And usually when I do a case, like let's say I arrest somebody and I pull their phone or I image it and I go into the computer and I'm looking at the computer, it's like different images, maybe an internet icon or a family photo or a video game still, a piece of pornography. It's kind of littered in there. Not this case. It was wall to wall. It took me over a year and a half to categorize all that image. And I wasn't alone. I had other people helping me categorize it over a year and a half to process that amount of data. That one case. And that's one person. Another example about the Tri-Cities, and I want you to understand this. I'm sure a number of you probably have all watched To Catch a Predator on Dateline. Well, if you haven't, YouTube it. It's there. It's kind of entertaining, really. But in Washington State, we've ran, nationally, ICAC teams across the country have ran what's called a net nanny. A net nanny is where a large portion of detectives and law enforcement will get together to run a weekend operation where we'll have people go online and portray themselves as various children or parents that are soliciting their children or whatever else. One weekend, and we'll make arrests. We'll select a target house. They arrive, and we start the arresting. Interview, polygraph, the whole operation. Tri-Cities has still the biggest record in a single weekend. 26 arrests, one weekend. That means 26 individuals were coming to have sex with a 13-year-old child. The last one I did in Yakima. We arrested 18 individuals in a single weekend. 2 of them showed up with guns. 1 of them showed up with a knife, and 1 of them showed up with an animal spreader. And if you don't know what that is, it's a farm implement that's used to keep an animal's legs spread apart. Awful, I know. Horrible. But this is what we're paid to do. We do this to protect the kids that don't know any better, that are online, that are being hunted by these same predators. Today we're witnessing probably our greatest generational gap. And if you guys know what I mean by this, you have to see it, especially parents of probably teenagers at this point. I mean, if you think about it this way, 70s, 80s, 90s, how much of a switch up was there? I mean, maybe some bell bottoms to big hair in the 80s, some music choices, it wasn't that big of a change. We still could relate to the stories. I still remember hearing my dad's stories. And I wanted to emulate my father. I was very proud of my father, and I wanted to try to be like him. And we were able to communicate in a manner that even though I might not have agreed with everything that he did or didn't do, I still could relate. There was a bit of a relation. Between Gen X, which is my generation, and Gen Z, which is your kids today up to 25, the communication ceased. Gen Z does not even know what technology, or life without technology is. They can't fathom it. They can't process it. They don't know what it's like to be the remote control for your parents. Hey, bud, go and turn the channel. You turn it up. Can you hold the antenna? They don't know what it's like to have to wait a full year to catch the Christmas special that you were hoping to catch on TV because your parents were late from getting home from their bowling league or whatever they were doing. They didn't understand what it's like to suffer those little inconveniences. Not now, don't have to. It's like whatever they want, it's at their hands. It's instant gratification. And the worst part is the way these social media apps are changing our perceptions of things, they can't even process amounts of information. This would kill them right now. Like, an hour long? You want me to listen for an hour? Are you kidding me? Now, if I could do a 1-minute TikTok video, they might be able to digest that. But, let's be honest, a standard TikTok video is generally about 10 seconds long, and they're off to the next one, and they're off to the next one, and they're off to the next one. They're digesting information in such a small bits that they don't have any focus. So when we're trying to relate to our own children, we're obsolete. We can't seem to communicate to them in a way that they're processing it correctly. Now, I'm not saying that there's no way of doing it. I'm sure there are. But I'm just telling you, for the foremost, that's why teachers are having such problems communicating with the children. That's why officials are having a problem communicating with the children. That's why parents are having a problem communicating with children. I do not believe the human mind was built to take on so much information. When we were kids, our world was our neighborhood. It was a church. It was our baseball team. It was the Boy Scouts. That was our world. We'd wait for the news to come on in the evening, or you might read the paper, but it was never slammed in your face 24/7. You didn't have to worry about everybody's opinion because really you only cared about 2 or 3. Our schools were limited. We only had, some people went to school, graduated with 25 kids, others graduated with 500. But even at a class of mine was 550 kids, who do we want to emulate? Maybe a handful of kids? Maybe I liked Joe because he had a better throwing arm than I did, or, Brad because he had cooler clothes and a nicer car, or Steve because he had a girlfriend that, everybody wished they had. Our wants were constricted to a smaller group. Girls, I'm sorry, you guys run the world, but at the same time, your Achilles heel is your self-esteem. I know that. How do I know that? I've been a girl online many times. And I can tell you, men, we're gross. We're just gross. We're just awful. I can't believe what women have to deal with when it comes to us. Now, I'm not saying good folks, but it's a jungle out there. Guys are aggressive and crazy and everything else. But the fact of the matter is women are their biggest weakness is being that they're so hard on themselves. It's the self-esteem. It's their value of themselves. And for whatever reason, it is easily manipulated. That's what my bad guys are doing. They're manipulating girls by their self-esteem. Take the girl in high school. What does she have? Maybe 10, 15 girls that she wished she was? Man, I wish I had her hair. I wish I had her clothes. I wish I looked like her. That was it. It was just a handful. Your children's self-esteem is based on millions of TikTok influencers and YouTube influencers and Instagram influencers with 400 different filters to make them look prettier or cuter or whatever else. They do not have any self-esteem. They're crushed by the sheer number that they'll never get to look like any of those people. But the only thing you can tell them is those people don't look like those people. But they never believe you for some reason. This is causing massive amounts of doubt. It's killing their self-esteem. It's creating isolation. Not that COVID helped us any in that scenario, right? It's creating anxiety, panic attacks, and even hypersexuality. During my tenure in high school, I don't think I ever recalled any kid committing suicide. Not that I heard of. I've heard of some accidents. I'm willing to bet just about everybody here has recently heard or knows of a high school student that killed themselves. My oldest son had 2 in his class. And that just astounds me. I don't understand. We're not seeing any more imagination in our children. There's no more creativeness. There's no more willingness to go against popular belief. Because if they do, they're going to be destroyed by the masses. Adults, we're seeing that too, right? You can't have an opinion that goes against the common theme. Not unless you unless you're okay with being attacked. And most of us are, let's put it that way. I'm good with it. You want to say whatever you want to say about me, go ahead. It doesn't affect me. But it took me a lot of years to get this way. Kids, they can't hack it. They don't know how to deal with that. It crushes them. They could sit there and say, I hate all these people that are saying bad things about me, but it still affects them. And it's creating problems in their own lives. Bark recently released some statistics I want to go over with you guys. Bark is a parental application. It's actually a very good one. It costs money. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But they run an algorithm on your child's phone, and they're looking for keywords, and they're looking for images, and they're looking for certain things that a parent should be notified about. Now, I'm not endorsing Bark, but it's a good resource if you want to have that extra parental connection. The reason I'm mentioning it is because Bark's algorithm is looking for certain keywords. Just some of their numbers that they reported for their 2021 annual report. In 2021, 68% of tweens, tween being a tweenager, a preteen or early teenager, and 90% of teens have encountered nudity or content of a sexual nature on their device. 90% of teens. There was a 25% increase in alerts for self-harm and suicidal ideation among children between 12 and 18 years of age from 2020. It means it went up 25%. 43% of tweens and 74% of teens were involved in self-harm situations or suicidal situations, meaning they were discussing, or they knew somebody, or they themselves were hurting themselves. 19% of tweens and 42% of teens used language about or were exposed to anxiety. 25% of children between 13 and 18 are affected by anxiety disorders. You guys ever recall seeing that in school? Because I don't. What does that mean? Imagine being a child with anxiety and you're being asked to sit still and learn. It's creating educational problems, and it's creating problems for them to be adaptive adults. You can't be an effective adult when you've already been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder by the time you're 8. 8. How does that even happen? "75% of tweens and 93% of teens engaged in conversations surrounding drugs and alcohol." I can tell you firsthand that's pretty accurate. It's everywhere. The legalization of marijuana sure didn't help it. Oh, we'll keep it from the kids. Yeah, okay. No way, it's everywhere. It's flooded the schools. Ask your kids, they'll tell you. 72% of tweens and 85% of teens experienced and or participated in bullying by either being the bully, the victim, or a witness. 32% of tweens, 56% of teens engage in conversations about depression. and I'm going to leave this one at last. 10% of tweens and 20% of teens encountered predatory behaviors from someone online. You guys are probably like, oh, 10, 20%, that's not that bad. That's the ones that are talking about it. Secrets remain secrets for years until they're ready to talk about it, or it's damaged them so bad that it's going to take years to correct it. But even if you look at 10% to 20%, would you allow your children out on the street if there was a 20% chance that they might come across a predator? But that's what we're doing by giving them devices, unmonitored devices, I should say. Applications of concern. My favorite, Snapchat. When Snapchat was originally created, I had an opportunity to do a virtual training with the founder of Snapchat, the creators, right? They got to say how it worked and everything else. In their presentation, they literally admitted this application was created for college kids to send nudes to each other. Do not let them lie. Do not let your kids lie. That was what it was created for. That's what it is designed for. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can beat it every which way. That wasn't enough, right? Like, let's make Snapchat even better. We're going to create a children's version of Snapchat so we can get them understanding how it works. That way, when they're kids, they'll know how to do it. You know you can buy drugs on Snapchat? I mean, you don't even have to find a dealer anymore. You just have to know whose stories to subscribe to. They'll post right there on their story what you can get. And you just contact them via the direct messenger. You can buy drugs on Snapchat easy. It's done all the time. How many of you know that there's a photo vault in Snapchat? For you that don't know what a photo vault is, it's literally a safe for all your photos and videos that you don't want to be exposed to the public or prying eyes. It's there, and I can tell you right now, if it has a passcode to it, somebody activated it because it doesn't automatically come with one. Kik. Oh, how I don't like Kik. It's a messaging application for you, those that don't know what it is. I call it the pedophile trading post because they do. They go in their chat rooms and they start trading, and that's how we find them a lot. Don't get me wrong, Kik is wonderfully law enforcement friendly. I mean, they fire off more cyber tips than anybody else. But that's where it's happening. TikTok. Ugh, I swear. There was a time where my stepdaughters, I took them out in public and they had to do this. Like, they couldn't even talk without doing a dance. I mean, I just want to find the creator of TikTok and just... Does bad things happen on TikTok? Yes, but bad things happen on every application. Here's my problem with TikTok, and people can correct me or, for whatever you want to do. It is what it is. I recently arrested a 14-year-old kid. Possession of child pornography. Distribution of child pornography. We had to go through his phone. He talked to us. And I'm going to go into what he said because, honestly, I arrested an 18-year-old kid that provided a lot of the same reasoning as to why they got into child pornography. But before I do that, I want to explain. When I was going through his phone, he had countless gigabytes of TikTok videos. Nothing but TikTok videos. And I'm not saying they were smutty, and I'm not saying they were bad or anything like that. But I realized as I'm going through these thousands of TikTok videos that this kid must have been watching TikTok 24/7, nonstop. And I realized what I'm looking at, it is literally junk food for the brain. And that's all this kid is digesting. 24 hours running junk food to the brain. Don't get me wrong, there's some hilarious TikTok videos. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I laugh at some of his videos I was watching, I was cracking up. But there's no balance. So this kid is doing nothing but a steady stream of junk food to his noodle, and that's all that's happening. And I know some of you are probably have talked to teenagers and realize, man, this kid can't even hold eye contact with me. Like I tried to shake his hand and I just got like this little, whatever that was. And, you know, and they're constantly like trying to reach for their phone and look at it, and they're uncomfortable, and they're nothing. They don't have an opinion. They don't have a thought. Nothing. And it's scary because this is who's going to be voting here pretty soon, and then I'm really going to be worried. I'm just going to hope God calls me home by then, because I don't want to see what that looks like, because I've seen their phones. I've seen their computers, and it's pretty bad. Either way, what I'm trying to explain, though, is that this is, even if you take the criminal elements out of what I'm talking about, even if your kid is a great kid, if you allow them to just digest junk all day long, every day, what you put in is what you're going to get out, right? I mean, how many people can even get their kids to read a book today, let alone an article? A paragraph. Like my kid's in college, and I still have to tell him, when you're texting me, son, it'll be complete sentences with proper punctuation. Oh, I make him do it. He hates it, because I will literally go through grammatical errors. I mean, what's an example? Which I told him he shouldn't do that. He literally spells witch, W-I-T-C-H, like the that witch. I'm like, seriously, kid, I've told you 12 times. And he's like, oh. I'm like, I'm just like so worried what he's turning in for college papers, because I'm like, oh. But, even as my own fault as a parent, I bought into the whole fact that, well, my kid's playing sports now. It'd be better to be able to have a way to communicate to him. Sure, let's get him an iPhone, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I bought into it, right? And, hey, I'm just watching YouTube videos. And every time I saw him, he was watching YouTube videos of sports or this or that. But even though he wasn't doing a lot of awful stuff around me with the phone or anything else, I still realized what it was that I was allowing him to do. I was allowing him to create his own bubble, his own world, where all he's going to do is digest junk. It would be no different than us if we were allowed to watch cartoons on TV 24/7. It never stopped. I actually have to read a book or look something up or whatever. And I realized that was my own fault. Going back to applications, Reddit. Reddit is kind of a post board for information. You can look up good things, best places to camp in the Pacific Northwest, or you can look up how to commit infidelity without getting caught. It's smut. There's pornography all over it. A million different ways to lie, cheat, steal, get away with things. Twitter. I enjoy Twitter. I mean, you can actually, really how you turn your social media is how it's going to be, right? So Twitter, I tend to follow like-minded individuals or pastors, or I even like Mr. T, which by the way is like the most godly guy out there. I mean, all he does is put up scriptures. I just keep hearing the A-team voice, and it's like, I pity the fool that don't believe in God, I mean, and I love it, man. He is a spiritual dude, and he's fun to follow. So it's really what you make of it, correct? I mean, but on the other hand, it's also easy to search for the other side of things. It is literally pornography bed for anything you can think of. It's kind of like the yellow pages for OnlyFans. For those of you that don't know what OnlyFans is we'll talk about this a little bit more. It's basically pornography for the common person. You don't no longer have to be a famous porn star. You can now create your own page on OnlyFans and try to make money that way. And then go to Twitter and advertise yourself and create a following. And it can be successful. Awful, but the reason why they do it is because it works, right? And then my all-time least favorite, the one that I just can't stand the most, Discord. And Discord's an up-and-comer. And I would encourage parents, look at your kids' phones. look at the applications that they have. Discord is a messaging app, and they base it on, well, this is for video gamers. Like, you know, if you're into video games and we just talk about video games. Incorrect. It's a multi-platform channel where you can create sub rooms or group rooms where you can trade in pornography or solicit in pornography. It's a popular hunting ground for predators. They know that kids are in there and they go after them. But I just got to pre-tell you guys that applications isn't where it stops. It's happening on your video games too. I'm going to tell you a story of a recent conviction that I did. It's local. And again, I'm not going to use names. I don't want to use names because for all I know, the family could go to church here, or people might know the family, and I'm not trying to embarrass them. I'm trying to teach a lesson as far as what happened. Parents were very good parents. They were very monitoring parents. They thought that they knew what was going on at all times. They took the steps. As Matt said, safety is what you make of it, right? But most likely with technology, it's nothing more than an illusion. So we have two brothers. One is 11 and one's 9. And the favorite game is Fortnite. And if you parents that are familiar with Fortnite, it's like Fortnite, that's just like a little shooting game, right? No big deal. Yeah, I mean, if for what it is based, it's a fun little game. Kids can build things and they get in little shooting things or whatever. But the 9-year-old really wanted to play with the brother. How many here have siblings? Older brother's like, not going to happen. I have my online friends, and you're not allowed to play with my online friends, and you can't play with me. So the 9-year-old is sad, and, you know, he doesn't like that, and he just, you know, wants somebody to play with, but nobody's playing with him. So he goes online and plays what's called random mode, meaning you're going to get paired up with people online. And he meets an individual. Now, the odds of this case are kind of interesting because usually when you go into random mode or you're pairing up with somebody online, you could be paired up with somebody all the way in Europe and you play locally. But somehow he got paired up with a person that just lived in Prosser. This person, this man, if you want to call him that, proceeded to groom the child. Grooming is a manipulation technique in order to facilitate trust with a child. They're playing, the kid's a 9-year-old kid, he doesn't know what he's doing his best that he can, but here's the other guy over there on the headset talking into the remote. They're like, oh bro, you're so good, man, you're God, bro, you're so awesome, man, you're the best, bro, oh yeah, you're the greatest. 9-year-old felt good about himself. He's like, yeah, finally, I got a friend. And the guy's like, yeah, let's play again. Let's play tomorrow. Let's play this time. Let's play that time. To the point where the kid was supposed to be in bed at a certain time, but he's getting up in the middle of the night because that's when the guy wanted to play. And he felt a loyalty because he finally got himself his own friend. Until one day the man tells him, well, I can't play with you anymore. I got stuff to do. Yanks away the one thing he wants, right? The kid is brokenhearted. He's begging, please, please, please don't stop playing with me. And then what's the guy do? Well, I got to be able to trust you, bro. You know, we got to have trust. And, you know, the way I know I can trust you is like if you send me a pic of yourself. I want to see what you got going on under your pants. Kid didn't know what to do. So he just knew that he didn't want that to stop. So he sent the pic. And then the guy started asking for more. He encouraged this kid over a span of time to do videos and acts to himself. I'm not going to describe the acts, but it's definitely acts you don't want to see your 9-year-old child commit. There's no reason a 9-year-old child should have any business knowing what those acts are. But he was videoing himself and he was sending it to this man just because he wanted a friend to play a video game with him. We caught the individual And I will say this, and I don't want anybody to think, again, it wasn't the parent is the one that got involved, because the child had a phone that was supposed to be Wi-Fi enabled only. The man gave him instructions on how to connect to the Wi-Fi to use it as a regular cell phone. And it started ringing. And mom found out. And that's how we became involved. Mom was doing a diligent job. She was doing her best. But this was a back door. And this man exposed it. We became involved with the case. And after our investigation, we caught him. And we brought him in. And we interviewed him. And during that interview, we got him to confess that he was doing it with other kids too. And right there in his Snapchat account, under My Eyes Only, he unlocked it for us, and we located 4 other boys that he was having send pictures to him. That man is now in federal prison for production of child pornography, and he's going to be an old man by the time he gets out. But that's how simple this happens. You can be doing everything you can try to do as a parent to be doing a good job, but it only takes a moment of weakness. Happy to report the boy is working hard. It was caught early enough. He's going through counseling, and he's dealing, and he's succeeding. I want to talk about other things with the kids, and we can cover those things, but I also want to talk about us as parents. And I want you to understand the difference of that generational gap that I'm going to talk to you about. I'm not accusing anybody here of anything, and I hope you understand that. I'm trying to describe what I've seen and what I've dealt with. And so when I say that, I'm going to talk about what's called the arc of pornography. And the arc of pornography is an interesting one, because I personally believe that pornography is probably the most evil thing on this planet. It's a lie. It's a fiction. And for whatever reason, it sucks people in so deep that they can't even understand that they're completely consumed by it. It creates expectations. It creates depravity, or lies to yourself that this is normal, right? When I was a kid, the worst that might have happened is some kid might have brought a Playboy magazine to the schoolyard, and you probably get 20 kids running for it just out of pure curiosity, right? Not because they were sexually interested in it, just because they were never seen one before and they knew you weren't supposed to look at that. Somebody might have had a video. Somebody might have had something that somebody might have saw or explained. But then technological advancement came in, right? By the early 2000s, you were able to go to pay sites or websites. You could search for pictures or different things. I'm here to tell you, in 2022, there's more free pornography sites that I can't even count them. I don't want to use the names because I don't want anybody looking anything up, but I can tell you one is approaching the billions of videos it has on its site of every kind of pornography you can think of, or every kind of pornography you can't even think of. And it actually encourages people to upload their own personal videos to the website. So it works in kind of this other order, right? What do kids today tell you that they want to be? I remember we hear a kid like, I want to be an actor, or I want to be a musician, or I want to be one of these things. Kids today, they want to be TikTok influencers, or they want to be YouTube influencers, making millions of dollars to, I don't know, do some weird dance on TikTok. I can't figure it out. Pornography sites are doing the same thing. Upload your content, create a channel. You might get advertisers. You might make money. Well, it's coming in such a flooded market that even child pornography is being populated onto these websites. And they do their best to get rid of it all. But when you're having thousands upon thousands of videos being uploaded on a daily basis, it's hard to track it all down, right? This is what your children have access to. All you have to Google is naked woman. Put it on images, and you're going to get hundreds of results. It might even direct you to one of these websites where you can search videos just by category. And going back to that number, 90% of teens are being exposed to nudity in a sexually graphic nature. 90%. And it's not just the boys. The girls are becoming involved with it too. I have to say, I don't know if everybody knows, Billie Eilish is a popular pop star right now, and I have to give her credit. She went on the media and talked about her own addiction to pornography. And it wasn't because, she was using it for her own sexual gratification. She got started into it because she wanted to be like the guys, and the guys were trading pornography. So she thought, well, if I'm cool with watching it, then I can get accepted by the guys. So she started watching it to the point where she couldn't stop watching it. And this is what creates this arc of pornography. I'm sure most of you have heard the term rabbit hole. You get to watching YouTube videos, watch another one and another one. I'm not talking about anything bad, but you start falling down the rabbit hole. Next thing you know, you've been sitting on the toilet for 30 minutes looking at videos, realizing your legs went numb. It's never happened to me, I promise. We all fall into it, right? I mean, and not like, again, I'm not talking about criminal material. It could just be something, hunting videos or cooking tutorials or whatever. You just get kind of caught up in it. Pornography is no different. I went and mentioned the 14-year-old and the 18-year-old. How did they get to where they were at? Oddly enough, parents restricted pornography. Parents went to their phones, got onto it, made it to where they couldn't access adult pornography. Now, I'm not saying that the parents should have, absolutely not. But these two kids, oddly enough, not related to each other, provided the same answer. They were going to other sites, anime sites, looking at cartoon pornography. One said that he went to furry pornography. Furries are people that dress up as animal mascots, and there were drawings. They started going to applications like Discord, looking for that kind of pornography. Next thing you know, somebody says, oh, you want some pornography? Here you go. They clicked the link, and it was child pornography. Both of them said, well, when I first looked at it, I was like really grossed out by it. But then I realized, well, wait a minute, it's not cartoon pornography, it's real. These are real people. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, it's 14, so what? He's like watching 14-year-old pornography? So, I mean, is that even a crime? No, folks, he was watching infancy, 2, 3 years of age. And I had to ask him, how did you get there? Curiosity. He went down the rabbit hole. I've talked to adults talk about the same thing. It starts with regular pornography, then it turns into something else, and something else, and something else. And I believe it or not, when it comes to pornography, there is an end, and I call it the abyss. And then when they hit the abyss and they touch the abyss, for some reason, it touches them back. And they'll all try to tell you, oh, well, I looked at it, but I deleted it, and, I felt really regretful about looking at it. Then why did you download it 6,000 more times? It's like it's not enough. The stuff that they were the adult stuff that they were looking at, it's no longer enough. They want more. And I'm not talking about acts that make you think that this person is enjoying it. I'm talking about vile acts. Their heart has been completely tainted by it. Their whole soul's been corrupted by it. And now they are slaves to it. And they can't stop. And I've seen this more times than I can count. It's the abyss. They've crossed over. Do they get help? I don't know. Can it be reversed? I don't know. I recently arrested somebody that committed a child sex crime when he was 17 years old to a 16, 17 years old to a 6-year-old child. Was convicted and was put on sex offender registry. And then I caught him for trading child pornography. And then during the interview, he said flat out, well, I never got over what happened when I was a kid, so I used this to. Okay. All right. So he's told me, he's like, I use this as a crutch because I don't want to touch kids. I'm using this to satiate the need. That's a lie. They're just waiting. In our field, we're taught that child pornography is the fantasy, and people that utilize it are just using it until they can get to the reality. And these people are everywhere, folks. They are. I've arrested 2 bus drivers. We've arrested fire chiefs. We've arrested youth counselors. We've arrested cops, doctors, nurses. They're everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one in here listening to this whole conversation. They are the wolves wearing sheep's clothing. When I worked the jail, it was odd. Back in the old jail, we used to have pods. C pod was the sex offender pod. That's where all the inmates would go that committed sex crimes. I always found it interesting because back in those days, it was face-to-face visitation. But that pod always had the most number of visitors. I mean, the line stretched out into the hallway. All the other ones, hardly any. And that's when I started to realize that these people are such great manipulators that they're able to throw these stories of how they're victims and how, it's a misunderstanding. The person we arrested last week, his mother already sent an email saying, this is a victimless crime. He's just looking at child pornography. You're wasting taxpayers' dollars by going after this person. Victimless? The most prolific traded child pornography series is called the Vicky series. Vicky's a resident of here. She lives here. Her father worked at Hanford Patrol. He was one of our reserve deputies. And he videotaped hours and hours of him abusing his daughter. And it is the #1 most prolifically traded set on the internet today. I've met Vicky. That girl has overcome a lot. She's working on becoming a counselor. If she hasn't already become a counselor, she has children. And she puts one foot in front of the other every day. She's had to change her name twice. I didn't even bother learning her new name. I don't want to know her new name. Because they still hunt her. They're still looking for her. They're still out there trying to ruin her. And she's an adult woman now. I can't arrest anybody, it seems like, without them having a Vicky image on their devices. And I'm here to tell you, folks, that's local. Aren't we famous for something amazing? Sadly, we are. The reason I'm telling you this is because, again, I use the term sheep with love and admiration because I don't want anything bad to happen. I want us all to be able to graze on the green grass and be led by the shepherd to safety. But I'm telling you, the wolves are out there. And they're even amongst us wearing sheep's clothing. And you have to be aware that this is happening every day. This isn't a once in a while thing. This is every day. If I brought you to my office, I have 5 enormous dry erase boards. all of it is covered with names and cases of suspects that we're currently working or have finished and waiting for adjudication, meaning waiting for it to go to trial. Filled in our little town. This is such a big problem, and we're just now doing something about it as of recently. Washington State only has 3 ICAC task force in the entire state. In my task force, there's only 6 of us. 2 of them are Homeland Security guys. One's a forensic operator, meaning he's running the forensics, but there's technically really and one's a supervisor. So we have about 3 to 4 that are actively investigating cases in the southeast region. So I don't even just do the Tri-Cities. We do Yakima, we do Spokane, we've done everywhere in this area. We've even been called to work in other states to help out because our task force is now so seasoned that other states are just now trying to catch up. This is an epidemic, and technology is creating it. And what blows me away about it is that technology is growing at such alarming rates, and we're just now committing forces to this. So I'd love to tell you we could do it all, folks, but we can't. We need you first. You have to be the first line of defense, and you have to educate yourselves. Trust me, I have to do it every day. I'm almost 45 years old. I'm so tired of learning new social media applications. It exhausts me. I hate trying to learn new language. I mean, the kids today, bet, sus, like what? You can't even say the whole word? I mean, it's tiring. Parents, we have to be the example. I challenge my son all the time. I told you, every time my kids text message me, I tell them flat out, you will text me in full sentences and you will use punctuation. When they were younger, how many of you get this? Oh, let me show you something. Let me show you something on my phone. Let me show you something on my phone. And you usually watch it and you're like, well, that's about 20 seconds of my life I'll never get back. So I challenge them there. Okay, I'll let you show me something on your phone, but then I want you to go back and I want you to tell me a fact about something. Teach me something. Don't just show me something. Never really works because they just stop showing me things. But sometimes that can be a win-win. Make them read anything, comic books, back of a cereal box. I don't care. Find a way to make them read. Me personally, yes, I still like Facebook. I enjoy Facebook because I have my Army friends on there. I like to watch their families grow. But I'm a dog nut, so I like, dogs. And my Facebook is pretty in tune with my algorithm, right? So it's going to tell me about cop stuff and dog stuff. And push this button and you get to read an article. I force myself to go away from social media to read articles. It can happen with kids too. Find ways to make them read. They need to read. Because if you see the writing, it's atrocious. I mean, they need to read. We'll talk about utilizing parental applications. We can discuss that. I'm sure we can go over that during the Q&A. Set limits and boundaries. Folks, I'm guilty of it. But the dinner table needs to be the dinner table. Leave your devices back. Don't bring them out. Don't show me anything. Oh, Mom, I just want to show you. No, you can show me after dinner. We're going to have conversations. This is what this time's for. Parents, your kids don't need their phones after bed. Oh, they use it for their alarm clock. My kid's got a $10 Walmart alarm. It still works. One of the biggest regrets I did was let them have that phone because I thought they were being mature enough to be like, okay, I'm going to bed at 9. No, I find out later he's YouTube until midnight. My bad. I had to take the phone away from him numerous times. I believe in creating a charging station. I could go back. This is just a suggestion because I'm obviously a failure. I wish I tell parents now if I were to do it over, I'd create a charging station, meaning at the end of the night, phone's plugged in there, devices are plugged in there. You can retrieve them again in the morning after I wake up. charging station being in my bedroom, because you ain't coming in unless I'm awake. We have to find ways to set boundaries to keep them from utilizing the devices. They don't need the device 24/7. They become too reliant on the device and then not enough on themselves. We can talk about using parental controls. We can talk about how to mirror devices. Some of that stuff helps. But one of the biggest things I'm going to let you know is don't succumb to the pressure. Guilty. I succumb to it. I mean, I'm an older parent. You know, I heard it all. But, you know, Dad, here's the deal. Like, look, if I have a phone, then you know where I'm at all the time. Like, the cop in me is like, hey, well, that's a good point. You know? My kid's playing sports, then I know where to, you know, pick them up, and this is a convenience for me too. Okay, all right. You know, I mean, and, you know, I'm guilty of it. And then, you know, you get your kid the starter phone. It's like, well, everybody makes fun of me because I don't have like the newest iPhones. Like, well, you still ain't getting the newest iPhone. It's like, well, I know, but if I could get like an 8, that would be cool. And you're like, okay, you can have my old 8. I'm gonna get the new phone. We fall into it. Well, you know, it makes more sense than trying to buy them like a $100 flip phone, because, I mean, who wants to spend $100 on a flip phone? I wish I would have. I'll just give them my old phone, and then I get the new phone. So, yeah, we fall for it. You know, it's convenient, makes things easier. Because guess what? We're just as guilty as they are about the aspects of convenience of technology. We like it, right? I do. How many of you have been in a discussion where you're in an argument about something? No, they said this. No, they said, well, hang on. I mean, you know, it's perfect information at our fingertips. I mean, it's not all bad, right? Technology can be for good and for evil. Probably about my hour. I'm going to leave it on this. And we'll do the Q&A. I truly believe, when I look at the internet and I consider what it is, I honestly, and this is going to sound funny, I consider it like the Garden of Eden. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We weren't meant to have that much technology and that much information. God warned us not to take from the fruit. But some reason, just as back then, we do now. I need to know. I need to know all the good. I need to know all the bad. But let's be honest, our kids are focused on all the bad. But essentially, the internet is nothing more than the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And when I thought about that, I laughed, because it's funny that Apple is the one device that seems to give us access to it all. So for that, I'll open up the Q&A.
Awesome. So we have someone's going to come around and pass around a mic, and I'm sure you understand that we could go a whole nother hour on this. There's a lot to talk about. But we'll do questions for about 20 or so minutes, and then there's a little something I would share. Right up here. Oh, sorry, Mike. He was right by you.
So the question is, Amazon Fire tablets, what's the experience of them being used by kids? In my experience, anything that can touch the internet has the capability of doing exactly what I just said. It has the propensity to be able to do something good with it or something evil with it, right? Social media applications, not all of them are an app. Some of them can be web-based browsed, meaning you can go into it through any sort of internet connection. Amazon Fire tablets, as I recall, do have a browser ability, which allows, you can also download applications. So really, essentially, it's just a bigger smartphone. I know there's lower end tablets that I think are just reader format. But again, like any electronic device, technology always creates a way to create a back door in order for you to have access to the things that you probably shouldn't have access to.
What are your thoughts on Wondershare called Family Safe? It's an app that I use I put it on my daughter, on our home phone, and has a lot of features. I don't know if you knew that one.
You know? No. So, as I was talking to Matt earlier tonight, there's probably certain applications that you guys know that I have no familiarity with. Wondershare, I'm sorry, and just so you know, the question was, what are my thoughts about Wondershare as a parental application and its usage? I don't know. And that's not a bad thing, because if I don't know, then more than likely it's doing its job, right? I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's a pay program, like you have to pay money in order for it to do it. Some are like that. I mentioned Bark. Bark is similar to the same type things. There's also free applications, folks. One of them I enjoy is Life 360. Life 360 doesn't really give you the content of what's going on your child's phone, but you can create a family circle, and it's basically active GPS tracking for each device within the phone, right? I mean, let's be honest. Our kids' need for their phones can work against them too, right? Because if I get a ding at 3 a.m. in the morning and they're not at home, guess who's going to be in trouble? I mean, that's the way it's going to be. But yes, there's many applications out there that are doing just that, probably working very well. But again, I don't think, and we'll talk, well, I'll just bring it up. It's not a fail-safe. And the reason why I can say that, like, for example, I'll be the first one honest. I grounded my kid from his phone for a month. 3 weeks in, I did a sweep through his room. Guess what I found under his pillow? Some other kid gave him his broken hand-me-down phone so he could get back on Snapchat and communicate. And I'm telling you, these kids are crafty, man. They're figuring it out. How do you counteract that? I'll talk about that real quick. Routers, believe it or not, some of the best ways to prevent your kids using other devices that you don't want utilized. Even if it doesn't have cell connection, it requires Wi-Fi signal, right? There's certain routers out there. I have one that runs a circle network. So anybody that comes into my network, it'll send me a ping on my phone like, hey, so-and-so's computer connected to our device. Somebody's phone connected, or unknown phone connected to our router. So then as soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, who's got what? And we need to figure it out now. Or if I really want to be mean and I'm worried about the kids, I'll just shut that stinker right off in the middle of the night. You're done, So there's many things out there. Google, whichever search engine you want, look at them, check the reviews, make sure it's easy to use, but there's plenty of software out there that will help you with those type things. So I haven't personally come up into anything like that with those games, Minecraft. I know Minecraft is definitely a favorite amongst kids, and it seems to be pretty low-key. I'll bring up one story, and again, parents, phenomenal parents. They're really God-fearing people, watching their kids, doing all the right things. I couldn't be more proud of these people. They're friends of mine. I mean, that's the way it is. They're really good with how they handle their children. Mom goes and allows daughter to download a game. She checks the game, makes sure the game is fine. There's nothing wrong with the game. Everything looks on the up and up, good to go. Level 15 opens up a chat browser. And guess what happened? Inappropriate contact, nothing vile or hideous or insidious, but because that was allowed, there was inappropriate communication occurring. And the parents didn't know anything about it until later, because the child was acting dramatically different. So even with something like Minecraft or Roblox or whatever, if there is a way to have a chat feature or anything else, it's just an invitation of allowing whoever to come in. So it's not a perfect world, but I'm just saying, and I don't want to freak everybody out, like, oh my gosh, I can never let my kid do anything ever. I'm just going to wrap them in a bubble, and you can't. But I'm just telling you right now, I tell you this so you keep your guard up. And, spot check. I think that's the best thing I can tell parents. Spot check them. Hey, let me see your phone. What? Why? Because I want to see your phone. Make them aware of it. Like, oh man, mom might spot check me. You can do what you have to do.
Behavioral issues in kids, what are some things that can be indicators that something's going on?
That's a good question. Question being behavioral issues, how can you tell if there is anything going on or be able to spot that? Oh, here's the worst part. Somebody that's been victimized by it honestly just acts like a moody teenager. I don't want to talk to you, just leave me alone. So it's hard to really decipher that, it's because you don't know. I've dealt with kids where, parents had no clue. Even though all the signs were there, they just thought, we recently moved and they're just acting really depressed or whatever. But you can't beat yourself up about that sort of stuff, because the truth of the matter is the child will come forward when the child is ready. And you can spot check them and you can talk to them and you can bring up situations. Parents, that's the one thing I would recommend doing, especially with young children. You need to go ahead and have those safety conversations with them. Hey, what would you do if a stranger talked to you? What do you do before you cross the road? Instill that and try to generate conversation. That's the biggest thing. That's the problem with these devices. They're creating up barriers between us and our kids. We can't have communication when we're constantly looking at our own phones and they're looking at their phones. I'm sorry, but when you're texting your kid to come to dinner, there's a problem. We have to be above that in order to create that conversation. So that's what I'm suggesting is it's within the conversation if the child feels comfortable. Again, I'm not trying to TMI it too much. My own personal situation, I was told that I had to keep it a secret and that I'd be in trouble if I ever told anybody. It took me 7 years to finally tell my parents what happened to me. Oddly enough, it was after watching Bill Cosby on an after-school special talking about it. It worked, and I had that conversation. And, it was not my parents' fault, and it was never their fault. And again, it wasn't anything massive or huge, but, you trust people. You trust family members or you trust your friends, and again, those wolves hide in sheep's clothing. So as far as that goes, sometimes it's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time and being vulnerable. You have to, I know especially dads, we want to be tough for our kids. We want to be tough for our family. We're gonna shield them from all the dangers. But because sometimes we portray how tough we are, our kids think that we're too tough to go to. So you have to be willing to communicate vulnerability, because that's what they're looking for. They don't want to know you're perfect. If they think you're perfect, that scares them, because they feel like they failed you if they're not perfect. So you have to be willing to communicate your own issues. Now, I'm not saying that you say it's okay, but I'm just saying that you have to be willing to say, yeah, these type things happen to me. I used my own for my own sons. I had to tell them, and I would constantly check in on them. I've talked to you about this, boys. This is what happened to me. I got to ask, has anything like this ever happened? No, Dad, no, never. No, we know. We tell you. And it's because I was able to become vulnerable with my own children. So what you're looking for, it's hard to say. Obviously, if your child is happy-go-lucky all the time, and then there's a massive shift on the baseline behavior, yeah, obviously something's wrong. But for the most part, it's really hard to tell, because you never know when that triggered memory is going to come up, because it is. It's very PTSD. It'll haunt you forever. You never know when it's going to come. So, I don't know. It's just being observant and trying to create that communication always. You have to be willing to do that.
I'm telling my kids all the time that they're responsible for each other too. And so, the oldest one, her job is, and they go to school here, and this place is, our school, Calvary Christian School, it's no different than the public schools in the sense that sin's here, right? We got the same drama, we got the same issues going on. We got the advantage in the sense that every classroom is taking the subject and pointing it to Christ, and we get to deal, and I love it. We get to deal with kids, whatever the behavior issue is. We get to point it back to Christ and have wonderful conversations. Awesome. But my kids, their job is to be looking out for each other, and they don't hide it. And so when one of our kids is going through some type of sin, then I jump on the other kid's case and go, why aren't you looking out for your sister? And so what we found out is that our kids will even talk to each other before they talk to us. Yeah, they just tend to do that, right? And then they'll also, like our friends, they'll get in the car and then they'll say something to our friends. You know, it just pops out. And our friends will, in fact, we just went to dinner with one of our friends the other day, and he was telling us, you know, daughter got in the car and said she can't wait till she's 18 and she can move out and da-da-da-da. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a conversation with my daughter about that. And so I got a lot of friends and the girls just picking up on little things like that. And it's doesn't have to be some radical thing, but it can be a maintenance thing. You know what I mean? I don't want to wait till it's too far gone along. I want to kind of just stay on top of it. If that makes sense. There was a guy back there in the corner that had been having his hand raised a while. Yeah.
Hey, Scotty. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Got a question for you. Hey. So anyways, we've been doing a fairly decent job of late monitoring our daughter's cell phone, of course, doing that spot checks that you recommend, whatnot. One thing we did notice of late, though, she got the text, she's got iPhone, and so she's doing a lot of voice messages and stuff. And then we just realized that we just got to notice that, like, somebody's actually saving them. So is there a way to disable that you're aware of the voice messaging or anything like that? Thanks, by the way.
So, you know, Drew, my best friend from high school that absolutely knows everything about me, to include all my sins. Shh, don't say anything. The question was that his daughter is communicating via the recorded voice message option, and they're getting an alert that somebody's saving the recorded voice option. So I'm unfamiliar with the ability to save, but I'll tell you what my forensic operator would always tell me whenever I had questions about stuff like that. He used to always tell me GTS, and I had to ask him what that meant. I won't tell you what it means because cops are crude, but I'll just go Google that stuff, okay? So it's been a different word. Anyways, I don't want to be crass, but there's truth to it. A lot of the stuff that I learned, it was by going through search menus like with Google and everything else. I learned how to mirror my kid's phone using a different device. I had one problematic teenager where it was so bad, but, you know, it was my stepdaughter. Her mom didn't want to let her go without a device, but, you know, we're trying to create ways to where we could check the functionality. We figured out how to screen mirror it with an iPod. There's ways of doing it, but honestly, you'd probably have to Google it because I'm not familiar with that one. But trust me, there's resources within Google, because we are a collective whole. Let's talk about the one good thing technology does. There's a bunch of parents on there that are freaking out what their kids are doing, and they're telling you hacks on how to fix it. So you just have to, that's a positive thing. That's what we're looking for. So I would recommend Googling it. If not, since I know you, I could probably see if I could find an answer for you and get back to you on it.
Right here. If you're a parent and you have children over there, they love having them, but they're going to leave them on the grass here directly. So you might want to think about getting them.
Oh, well, let me, oh man, since all of you guys are leaving real quick, let me just, I was looking on line today, and there's some things that you can look at for phones. One is called Gab, one is called TrueMe, and one is called Pinwheel. Okay, so what they are is they are their own system phones. And And so I know that some people can, you can get on your iPhone and things like that and dictate what your kids are doing and stuff. But what Gab, TrueMe, and Pinwheel do is it stays within their own system. Gab is something for little kids. If you got kids in elementary school, and some people, they have both a watch and a phone, and it will do the GPS. But all it is direct call and text, nothing else. And so, if you're a parent and that's it, you control who the contacts are. Does that make sense? So that's Gab. The problem with Gab is if you have contacts with other kids, they can delete it, and then you can't see it. So what Pinwheel is and what TrueMe is, what's kind of neat about them is they're controlled with an online portal. So you buy the phone, you can get it through, I believe that I think TrueMe may be its own service. I think Pinwheel, you can use it through Verizon, you can use it through T-Mobile. But you control the phone through its portal, which means you select the apps, and the idea with it is that as your kid grows and has more freedom, you can kind of increase that freedom. They only allow, I think, Pinwheel at the time that I was watching this review had 200 some apps, and TrueMe had less than 100 apps. And so they're all intended to be child friendly, but you control it. So you control when your kid is on the phone. You can do it to where you can't get on the app unless they do their chores. You can control which apps at which time. So when your kids get home from school and you have particular apps that are good, let's say it's Duolingo for Spanish, or if it's Math Papa for math or something like that, they can only use those academic apps during that time. And then they can do other apps at a certain time. But what was really neat about Pinwheel is when it comes to the whole texting thing and they delete it, all of the texts come up on the portal and you can read all the texts. So they can't delete it and hide it. There's also, if people try spamming with texts, or someone a phone number that you don't recognize, it comes up on that portal. It doesn't go to the phone. It comes on the portal, and you accept it or reject it before it even goes to the kid's phone. So I don't know a ton about those, but those are some that you can look at, because I know that those were some things that people were considering. And so TrueMe, Pinwheel, Gab, you can get online and check those things out if you're interested. One of the things I was finding, we got our kids iPods because, in fact, we went to Best Buy and we were telling the sales rep there, hey, we don't want to get our kids cell phones, and immediately said, oh, I wish I didn't get my kid a cell phone. So we got them iPods, and they can get apps and stuff like that, and they were playing Words with Friends. And what can you do with Words with Friends? Yeah, chat. And so our kids lost it pretty quickly because before you knew it, one of them was on a discussion with a 40-year-old man, right? And the guy was fine. In fact, the guy stopped it. Once he found out what was going on, he quit and all that kind of stuff. But it was that easy, right? And so flip phones, the same thing can happen. You can take pictures. You can send pictures. The lady that was talking about why she loves Pinwheel so much is because it's actually safer than flip phone. But here's the deal with what Scott was saying. One of the things that I'm seeing is that probably the biggest way around it is what? They just get another phone, right? And so there's no, they just find some other tool. But anyway, I was throwing those out to you in case you're interested. Was there any other questions? I know some were popping up here.
I was wondering, for some of us technologically challenged people, is there a way, if you are suspecting maybe something sinister is going on, if you could bring in a laptop somewhere or a cell phone to have looked at, like forensically?
Yeah. So it depends. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to go and spot check your child's devices because you got a hinky feeling. Although if you're observing something that has genuinely caused you fear or concern, then yes, more than likely you'd have to do the normal process. You're going to have to call non-emergency dispatch and file a report and sign a consent, give the device up, and you're probably going to lose the device until we can get to it. But yes, we can do it. What you have to understand that to do a forensic image of a device isn't an overnight or a 10-minute ordeal. This is something that takes a substantial amount of time. It's not like CSI where they have it wrapped up in 30 minutes. I mean, it could take months. And then it's also by priority. But yeah, I mean, if it's severe enough, then absolutely, we'd be more than willing to come take a look at it. But I'll just leave it this way. You're technologically not advanced because you choose to be. I'm not college educated. I don't have a doctorate. I'm not the super smartest guy in the world. But Google, YouTube, whatever, there's positive things out there that'll teach you how to do it. So if you have questions or even simple conversations, normally I would have brought my cards with me, but maybe I can get the information out somehow. I have no problem with people contacting me via my work cell phone and asking me questions. I come to this church. If you see me, stop me. In fact, after we're done here, because I know a lot of you want to go home, I'll stand in the back there for a little longer and keep answering questions because I know people have them and they're not really willing to raise their hand in a public area like this. But yeah, I mean, there's resources for you out there, either through the internet or word of mouth or just talking to somebody. We'll figure it out. There's a way.
I think we could probably do one more.
The person that had the question about which games are safe and not safe, if they have a chat room, they're not safe. Roblox is intended for ages 5 and up, and we had problems with sexual predator on Roblox. So if it's got a chat, it's not safe. So a better way, instead of trying to protect them against any new thing coming along, is just to talk to them about it and what's wrong. And secondly, I fully endorse the pinwheel phone, and if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Wonderful. Yeah, just to echo that, you have to remember, child sex predators go where children are. They're looking, and they'll go everywhere that they can find them.
Okay, Scott's going to hang out in the back. There's a couple things I wanted to thank you, buddy. Yes. A couple things I want to let you guys know. For 8611, we have a rule for our leaders is that we cannot directly text kids, and we ask kids not to directly text us. It does happen. We really try to minimize that. We know that there are times where kids want to directly talk to us. And there are times where they might, it's a simple, question. Hey, Matt, is 8611 happening tonight? And where are we meeting for discipleship or whatever? We just ask them to tag someone, either another leader or preferably their parent. And the reason that we prefer them tag their parent is so that you know what's going on, right? And so many times, plans change, something happens, and the parent comes to our house to pick up their kid, and they're like, oh, well, they went to Dairy Queen with so-and-so or whatever. And so if your kid's going to text us, we just ask that they tag you onto it, or if not, another leader. We have an app called Band for 8611, and the purpose of it is so that everyone can see what's going on. So kids are on it and parents are on it. We prefer for parents to be on it. It looks kind of like a Facebook wall type thing, where someone can post, ask a question, people can comment on it, but it's something that everyone can see with that. Probably the biggest thing in my world with kids and cell phones, Scott deals a lot with internet crime. I deal a lot with the etiquette. It's even something that I'm dealing with adults on. If you have a problem with someone, if your kids have a problem with someone, is texting the way to solve the problem? and it's not. And so we have seen more drama get created out of thin air and get even worse because the way that they're talking to each other on their phones. And so what we're really working with our own kids on is how to actually have conversations and speak respectfully. And if you have a problem with someone, then what do? Yeah, call them up, right? Or meet with them in person and not try to deal with those things through text. And then finally, believe it or not, well, and this kind of goes with what Scott was saying. But probably the biggest thing besides drama is the selfies. One of the things that happens is the minute that you put something out there, it's permanent, right? And we see a couple things. One, the whole bullying thing, and then lastly, self-identification in a false sense of value and worth, especially with girls. And so we're really trying to, as far as leaders, stay on top of that and just protect kids. And I don't want to go, I could go on forever, but I know it's late, and I'll pray and get you guys out of here. Scott's back there. I'm up here if you guys have questions. Thanks for coming, and let's get you out of here. Father, thanks so much just for protecting us. We live in a privileged world where technology is certainly beneficial and useful, but what Satan wants to do is destroy us. He wants to destroy marriages. He wants to destroy kids, and he certainly wants to destroy fellowship. And technology is a good way to build those things. It's also a good way to really tear those things down. I pray for the parents here, Lord, that you give them wisdom and discernment, that you would bring flags up when necessarily, and that when those flags are risen up in people's hearts, moms' hearts, dads' hearts, to just take that and follow through with it. And I pray that you would bring those things to light. Your word says, Lord, that we're supposed to bring those things to light. And it's a shameful thing to talk about these things in secret. And so, Lord, I pray that we would be bold and on the offense of pursuing righteousness and not afraid when sin wants to come and keep us enslaved. You called us to be free from those things. And so I just pray again for wisdom and discernment, your spirit, and you protect your people and be glorified in our lives. We just love you and pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you guys.